Okay, please excuse my very messy bench, but I've been working on a lot of different projects lately, including repairing cuckoo clocks and a couple of battery chargers. And I just haven't had time to clean up this mess. But I wanted to show you something that I found to be rather interesting. First off, this is a motor that I've used for lots of different experiments, and right now it's kind of the key to what I'm doing here. You see, I've got a slip ring on this end made out of a little piece of copper tubing and an extra brush fastened on, and there's a wire running from that brush inside. I grooved the shaft out so I could slip it under the bearing, between the bearing and the shaft, and then back through the armature, and it connects to one of the segments on this end. And then here's the two regular brushes that you can see, and I have a wire going to each brush. The fields are disconnected. That was for another experiment. So the fields are not powered. They're not doing anything. Basically, when I rotate the motor, the wire from the slip ring goes from one brush around to the other brush. And of course, in between, there's the resistance of the armature and inductance of the armature in there. What I've got, Jim Mook, or Floodrod, showed a different way of hooking up the Figuera coils. And after thinking about it, I thought, well, I've got a way I can do that and see what happens, because I was curious if his method is going to give better output than the way it's normally done. But what I've got, this is my 12-volt power supply, and that's what I'm using to power the primary coils of this. Okay, I also have a power supply over here that I'm using just to drive the motor that's going to be turning all this. I hope I'm not going too fast. But anyway, I've got the positive from this power supply over here connected to one end of the coil and to one of the brushes, which is similar to what he's showing with his wiper going back and forth. And the other end of the power supply connected to the other coil and also to the other brush, to actually the one up on top. I've got the common of these two coils going back to this slip ring. So as we rotate, it's going to do just like Jim Mack's drawing. The wiper is going to go from one end, going to go from one end of one coil to the end of the other coil through the resistance, with basically the battery, which I'm using the power supply, in between the two coils. So we're kind of we're shorting out the coil on one end to get it more power, and moving across, gradually shorting out the coil on the other end. And so I'm going to start this up. I hope you followed that. But you can look at his drawing, and he's got it posted on the online. Look at his drawing to get a better understanding instead of looking at all this mess I've got here of wires going every which way. Well, let me start it up first. So we got our motor running, okay, and now we're going to turn on the 12-volt power supply. And here's what we've got on the scope. And come in here, you can see it's not a lot of voltage because it's a really crude setup. I've got a poor example for a core, and my coils are not really designed for this. But you can see I got about 1.5, bouncing around a lot because of a little bit of noise, but 1.2 to 1.5 volts or so on my output, which is connected to a 10 ohm resistor here as a load. If I take the 10 ohm resistor off, while the voltage goes way up, but so do the spikes and all because of the brushes here. So that's what we're getting with it connected up, like Jim Mack said, or Floodrod. I'm going to shut it down and connect it back the way most people connect the Figuera, and we'll see if there's a difference. So let me shut everything down. I'll shut the video off, and then I'll restart it when we get switched. Okay, I'm back. We're running the motor about the same speed. We got the voltage set the same and all that. It's only about the same frequency and all. But and all I've done, I've changed and hooked it up like the regular Figuera usually hooked up with the. I've got 12 volts going to the slip ring now, which would be the wiper on the regular setup, and then I've got one brush going to one coil to the end, and the other brush going to the other coil end. And so anyway, and then the common is going back to the return on the power supply, which is the way Figuera is usually hooked up. So everything's the same as it was, except I've swapped away the batteries hooked up, or the 12 volt power supply in this case. Now look what the voltage is now. Millivolts, 620, 700 millivolts. About half of what it was connected the other way. So there's definitely something different about hooking it up this way. I think Floodrod or Jim Mack, whatever he wants to go by, is onto something hooking it up this way, because the output is definitely half hooking it up the way most people hook up the Figuera. So anyway, I thought I'd share this. You can make of it whatever you want to. Catch you later. Bye.